The song. That was just beautiful. And welcome to all of you here, and welcome to all of those joining us from their home on Facebook and YouTube. Today is Sunday, May 5th, 2025, and you are joining Home Spiritual Center Sunday service. So welcome, and welcome to everyone here. I'd like to invite you to join me in our opening prayer. Spirit, thank you for blessing our community with so much joy and for bringing us together to strengthen our beliefs and support each other. As we listen this morning to Reverend Connie's talk, allow the words we hear to fill us up to overflowing with an abundant supply of love and grace. Amen, and so it is. And now, Reverend Connie.
I'm going to start this morning by working a little bit with this book. Mr. God, This is Anna. This was written by an Englishman, simply goes by Finn. Anna, at 5 years old, suddenly came into Finn's life. She was like a little orphan left on the street that didn't want to go home. But she so believed in God, she felt that God could answer any question that you had. So she called him Mr. God, and she would address him, Mr. God. One time when she was 6, as the author begins this book, he quotes her as having said, after asking about angels and people, "The difference from a person and an angel is easy. Most of an angel is inside. Most of a person is outside." These are the words that she spoke when she was only 6. He goes on to say, sometimes we called her Anna, but sometimes we called her Mouse, and Joy. At 5 years, Anna knew absolutely the purpose of being, knew the meaning of love, and was a personal friend and helper for Mr. God. It's an absolutely incredible book. I don't know how many times I've read it over the years, but it always brings me back to that understanding, just like the song, Let Me Remember, that we are connected to the Creator, God, Divine, Spirit, whatever you wish to call that other part of ourselves. That part of us that is invisible, that part of us that is spiritual. She had such a strong belief, this little girl. That's why I'm sure I was told to go look at that book, as I was some others. So I say to you, how important is what you believe, especially to what you experience in life? Do you believe? Do your beliefs influence your creation? Do they influence your creation of your reality? I think the answer is yes. Back a few weeks ago, I thought I had the answers, the formula of how we create reality. And the formula I kept coming across in different places was thoughts follow energy or emotion, which means energy and motion, into form. Seems simple enough, right? However, I was led when asking for inspiration for this message to another book in my library that I hadn't opened for quite some time, called The Nature of Personal Reality. This book was written back in 1972, 73. And it's all of Jane Roberts' sessional information when she would go into medium. She was a medium for an entity named Seth, and her husband would record all of these. She was a trance medium. In this book, Seth explains that belief is the foundation that our thoughts and emotions work through to create our experience in our reality. So that was a little different because he's telling us that what we believe, our very core beliefs, create this experience that we have in life. And Seth goes on in that particular part of the book, and he challenges us. He says, reader, closely examine your beliefs. And he suggests write them down. Write them down. And don't be afraid to include those you feel are negative, along with those that you feel are positive. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your life? What do you believe about your world? Now I will tell you, when I first encountered Jane Roberts' books some 50 years ago, I was plowing through her very large, it's a big, thick volume, which was entitled Seth Speaks. I was fairly new to metaphysics at that time. You don't have to go to your cell phone to understand people. The volume, in that volume, I was trying to understand these metaphysical meanings that he was putting out. They weren't computing too well. And I was really trying to understand this, and I was talking to my husband about it. And he says to me one day, noting my frustration, I think you have mental indigestion from that book. Well, I had to agree with him. I think I did. So I put it aside, and I didn't pick it up until 30 years later. In fact, I picked it up when I was getting ready to give it away in a garage sale. But I was so impressed at that time because I did at that point. I had learned enough to accept the puzzle pieces that were coming together in my mind about different metaphysical concepts. I will say to you, even to this day, some over 50 years later, I'm still receiving puzzle pieces. And this was the latest one about your beliefs being the foundation with which we create. However, I will say this, because I'm still reading this book about beliefs, that, in fact, I'm reading it to my husband, Dick, each morning, that it's still not an easy book to understand. The concepts were coming from an entity that lived in a different reality than the one that we are experiencing. And he was working his message through a human woman who knew some metaphysical stuff because she taught ESP classes and so forth. But our language, they always tell us, those that channel and channel different entities, they have difficulty because our human language doesn't express everything they wish to say. And that's part of how this is. But that book is loaded with things that I'm putting into my spiritual knowledge. He goes on in this to explain that when one adds emotion, which he explains is actually invisible light, emotion is invisible light, one adds emotion, which he explains is invisible light. Yes, to thought, which he explains is inaudible sound. It will manifest into internal patterns or visions. Ever see things in your mind's eye? Or maybe even a geometric pattern or some pattern of the sort? That's what happens. And that then works through us and our belief system to become our reality. So those basic core beliefs are very important. They're very important. And he explains that's why mental images are so extremely important. Reverend Jay used to talk to us about having a mental image. He used to take and say he loved cars, so maybe he wanted a particular car. And I can remember he wanted something to do with 1966, but I don't remember the exact car. And so he had a picture of it that he put up on the mirror in his bedroom. And every day he would look at that and send it medicine. He said he'd send it energy. He'd send energy through his thoughts to it. Well, he never did quite manifest that particular car, but he certainly got a new one that year, as he did every year. So that's why it's extremely important. What do you really believe and what do you really want to create with your beliefs and your understandings? To kind of bring this point a little clearer, I'd like to tell you a little story about something that happened to my husband when we lived in Alaska. We used to live between a street that was straight, that was a pretty major street, and then there was like a dirt road that went around the back of our house in a curve and then rejoined the front street. And there were houses back there. In one of these houses, there were some children. So my husband's coming home from work, and he's coming off of the fairly busy street onto that. And he suddenly receives a mental image of a little girl lying down in the road around the corner, because you had to come around a corner and you couldn't see. And sure enough, he slowed down, and sure enough, there in the road was a little girl. Had he not paid attention to that, he might have been off in his head and just run right over her. But underlying beliefs said, you do not run over somebody with a car. And especially, you do not harm children. And that's how it works. That's how it works. Okay, so coming back now to where I am with my narrative, I feel that the nature of personal reality isn't an easy read, but it gives you a lot of good points. Let me give you another example. This is kind of based on some observations I've had in the grocery stores recently. Now let us look at another example. Dottie is on her way to do the grocery shopping for her family of 5 for the week. She's looking in her wallet and realizing, I don't have very much money. The prices keep going up. I hope I can make it. And she's worried. What is she worried about? She's worried about something called lack. And that is a very prevalent message that's out there right now. If you take that in and you have it in your belief system, which could be, I can remember my grandmother's pinching pennies, counting pennies, being worried, keeping every little drop of food still in. the refrigerator, even if it never got used. Why? Because they had just come out of the Depression. What are we being told by the media, by the advertising? You're back in a recession. You're lacking. You better go out there and run out and buy supplies when they're on sale. Do we want to buy into that? Do we want to keep that as a basic belief? If we do, what are we going to experience? More and more of the same, because patterns repeat. But we don't have to let them. We can change. We live in an abundant world. Go around and just see how many apples are dropping on the streets. Why people are out there begging for handouts. What a crazy scenario we got going on. You might wonder, okay, well, if our thoughts are creative and our beliefs are behind them, what do we believe about our health? What do we believe? Many years ago, I had the experience of watching my father become very disillusioned with the medical profession. He had been brought up by parents that oftentimes didn't have the money to go to doctors. My mother the same. And so they relied on old-fashioned home remedies a lot. I can remember my mother's father blowing smoke in my ear for an earache, painting my throat with an iodine, and things like that. So I came by it naturally to become an herbalist and to believe that there was something better than the drugs that doctors give. And so I studied herbalism and I studied homeopathy, and I've worked with other techniques that help with anxiety and so forth, like tapping, meditation, listening to quieting music. I'm sure you're familiar with some of these things. Most of us are. Most of us have worked through some of these things. But what happens when you experience pain? What do you want to do? You want it to go away right now. I don't like this. I don't want this. I don't want to be sick. But it happens to all of us at some point or another. But what does it believe? Where's that belief? Where does it go back to? And why pain? Well, we were designed for pain to tell us that there was something not right with our bodies, right? The other day I was talking to my brother who had just gone through an experience that sent him to the hospital where he was experiencing severe pain about this. And what I came to understand about pain is not only is it a signal that something is wrong in your body, it's a signal that you have a blockage in your energy pathways. So one of the ways that, if I can grab myself about this, is to look at where that pain is and say, okay, and visualize some energy coming from my heart source or my higher self, clearing that out. You don't have to go back and remember it all, although sometimes that's helpful, the whole scenario. There are other authors that also support this belief that your thoughts have to do with your health. Louise Hay is one of those. She wrote a book called Heal Your Body. She went on to write another one called Love Your Body. But this one particular day, when I had first started my business out of my home out in Dallas, I was trying to balance my bookkeeping for the month, and I really messed my checkbook up, so I was having a terrible time trying to do it. I got really frustrated, and I decided, okay, I'll just get a cup of tea and I'll go back out on my back porch and sit in the sun. It was a hot day, so I had shorts and a short top on, And I was trying to get that sliding glass door open, and I poured that hot tea all down my arm and all down my side. I was home alone with no car. The thought that popped into my mind almost instantaneously was, go get that jug of iced tea out of the refrigerator that nobody drank yesterday at the picnic. Because tea, I had read someplace in my herbal studies, tea has tannic acid in it, which helps burns. So I got a cloth and I wetted myself all down on both sides. Never, ever blistered, never, ever burned. I had to keep doing it, though, until the burning sensation went away, but it did. So there I was going back to a belief that I had gained by something I had read. We pick up beliefs from what we read, what we see, what other people say to us, all over the place. And if we don't examine them, we just store them. We store them. And then later in life, they might just pop up again and again and again until we recognize what we truly believe. Now, I believe when we are being admonished to take the time to clean out our closets, how many times this was one of the things that Reverend G was really emphasizing, quite a good idea that he was doing, though, because along came COVID later. But I don't think it means to go in and clean out all of your drawers and cupboards and garages and stuff and give away everything that you no longer use. That is helpful. But rather it means to take a good look at yourself and your emotions, your reactions, and your beliefs. Because you can have more than one belief attached to that outer expression of it. The outer one that you've given thought and so forth to. There's another book that I've often used that was written by a woman named Carol, just lost her last name, Carol Truman, that's called Thoughts Buried Alive Never Die. She has you focus on the feeling that you're feeling, like that pain you've got in your knee. How does it feel? You try to get a word, and you work with that word through a scenario where you go back through all time, all lifetimes, everything, and try to get at that core belief. And I've found that a very interesting book at one point in my life when I had just gone through a pretty serious illness. I wanted to know why I'd experienced that. And I got the answer. Yeah, it was called rage. And certainly it is to our benefit to get to understanding about how belief affects our outer environment. I did what Seth said the other day. I took and I wrote out a list of my beliefs. I put all the things I could think of positively about myself and my life and everything on one side, and everything else I believed that were more negative on the other side. Well, both of those lists came out about even. But it made me more aware of myself and what I believe. And so I might suggest that it's a really good exercise to do. You could do like I did and ask your higher self for help in knowing what to look at. That's always helpful. You might even ask Mr. God, like Anna. Beliefs are truly an important aspect of one's life. They do indeed influence a person's experiences, and they can be both uplifting, joyful, or they can be low, depressive, making you unable to enjoy life. It's all up to us if we choose to work with our beliefs. Let's take a moment now and get comfortable in our seat. Take a few deep breaths. I'm going to do 3 ohms if you wish to join me. Om. 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 I might just interject here that this was something that Seth recommended also, and I've done that for years. Okay, take just a moment and think about some problem or difficulty that you're dealing with at the present time, and ask yourself, can I find the belief that lies behind these thoughts? And see if you receive anything. So I just give you a few moments to think about this. You can actually receive this guidance, but we have to ask. Just like Jesus told us, ask and you will receive. Just like little Anna, she believed that God had all the answers. If we believe that we are all a little spark of God, we can connect to those answers. With that, I'm going to close, and Lynn's going to come back. No, wait a minute. I'm getting out of order here. There's something about cheat sheets. Okay. Now we're going to go into our offering part of our service. I ask you to take a moment and put your hands together and prepare your offering. As this offering is prepared, may each gift carry the energy of generosity, alignment, and sacred intention, knowing that we are part of the greater circulation of good. We know that whatever you can give, it is multiplied for the highest healing, growth, and service for you and this community. As the offering basket is coming around, we thank you all for your generosity and for continuing to support our good works. While the basket is going around, I'm going to have Reverend Lynn come back up, and she's going to share her inspirational story, message, poem, whatever. I don't know how inspirational it be, but
Thank you, Connie. You know, when you were talking, I love tea. And you were talking about how the tea helped you. Tea is also good if you have an eye infection. You soak it in water and you put it on, and you can dye your hair with it. I mean, tea is a really good source, not for only for internal healing, but for external healing also. And I think, and I didn't mean to laugh, but I was laughing when you said clean out your closet, because I went right to my closet. That could really use some cleaning out. Anyway. Oh boy. There was I read about an epitaph that was in England on tombstone. And it said, "Remember, man, as you walk by, as you are, so once was I. As I am now, so shall you be. Remember this and follow me. And I guess somebody didn't like it, so they wrote over it and said, to follow you I will not consent until I know which way you went. So, I thought that was pretty good. Now, if everybody would like to join me in our closing prayer. Mother, Father God, thank you for the gift of today. And what a gift it is. Guide us and show us how to see the light and the love in every person we meet this week. Surround us all in an aura of truth, of love, of compassion, and opening our hearts to the belief that we are at peace with ourselves, with our lives, and with the world around us. And so it is. Amen. To everyone joining us from home, thank you for being with us. And from our hearts to yours, have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time at Home Spiritual Center. Have a beautiful week.